Greetings and welcome back to 50 Shades of Beige. Today we're working on a cardboard PC build competition with Jonathan Talks HW and Robert Fixit. The goal of this project is to build a budget PC in a cardboard box with points for style and jankery. I lost some footage along the way, so we're going to jump into a point where I've already selected my parts, but don't worry, we're going to bring it all together in the end. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So, before we get going, I would like to say, obviously there is an easier way to go about this. There are much better ways to do this particular process. I'm fully aware of that. But although I'm happy to hear your suggestions of how you would have done it, yeah, I'm aware that this is pretty piecemeal. It's pretty ugly. And that's because here at 50 Shades of Beige, we embrace the jank in life. The jank is like a cold glass of root beer on a hot day. It just smiles upon you and everything is grand. So as you can see here, we've got our 400 watt PVA power supply, Sapphire RX 580 Nitro Edition, this Dell mini PC in here, and it's got a Core i5 9500T in it, so it's not a Core i7, but it's still 9th gen. And I know the Wi-Fi card is falling out. I don't have another M.2 screw for that right now, so it's gonna be what it is. Once again, embracing our roots with the jankery, and I'm good with that. So next we need to work on exhaust. As you can see, I did leave a little bit of space here for our Sapphire Nitro card, but we're gonna need a little bit more than that. I was originally only going to put one exhaust fan in here, and that's because I'm concerned about compromising the structural integrity of the box. After all, this doesn't have to go very far, but we do need to at least make sure that this machine is somewhat transportable. We do have the most important part of our build here, an RGB controller. It's got a little remote, and it plugs in to a SATA port, so we'll go ahead and pull that out. Just this little guy here, it's really basic, and he comes with a tiny remote. It's also really basic, but it's good enough for the girls we date. So what we're gonna do with the fans, we don't need to take air in from the top at all. We're gonna put one fan bringing air in, let's see, on one of these two sides, depending on which one has the least amount of resistance. Let's see. Yeah, it's gonna go back here, and then we'll have the second fan pushing air out over here, and hopefully when the box is closed, that'll give us enough of general airflow here to kind of keep things nice and smelling fresh, you know? We don't want our CPU or our GPU getting too funky. I also have the obligatory light stick, and it's a perfect size to slide right down in here. So that'll be great. So we'll get some nice RGB. That adds at least 10 FPS. Well, let's go ahead and get everything installed here. We're probably gonna be pretty high on the jank scale, but that's all right. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, I'm gonna go ahead and use this Razer fan controller. I'm actually gonna use this for a newer build down the road. I'm not a huge fan of these controllers. I think they're a waste of money, but it's here and it's what we've got, so we're gonna go ahead and use it. Hopefully these will run without being configured, because this thing requires a USB header, because of course it does. Why you have to run your fan controller over a USB header is beyond me, but we'll leave it to Razer to overbuild something and charge an arm and a leg for it. And I'm thinking we can place this right here in the middle. That'll add some rigidity to the bottom, right where the two sides of the box meets. In fact, I'm wondering, before we get into performance, let me go ahead and give you the grand tour. This custom-engineered gaming PC features an advanced thermal management system with two 120mm RGB fans strategically configured in a push-pull arrangement to optimize airflow dynamics. These fans are integrated into an RGB controller for synchronized light modulation and are securely affixed to the cellulose-based chassis using a high-tensile polymeric fastener. Additional ductile reinforcement ensures the fans remain firmly pressed against the structure to maintain peak airflow efficiency. Central to this build is an RX 580 GPU mounted on a riser card to maximize spatial efficiency within the enclosure. The setup is powered by a 400-watt SFX power supply, delivering the necessary energy for high-performance gaming. The system also incorporates a mini PC featuring an Intel Core i5-9500T processor and 8GB of RAM. The PC protrudes through a precision-engineered aperture in the reinforced upper boundary of the enclosure. Storage for the mini PC is supplemented by a 1TB Crucial MX500 SSD interfaced with a universal serial bus, ensuring ample and efficient data management capabilities. Strategically positioned apertures have been meticulously cut into the chassis to facilitate access to essential I/O ports and integrate a custom Wi-Fi antenna, ensuring optimal connectivity. The enclosure is further enhanced by the use of duct tape to join and stabilize the two sides, ensuring mechanical robustness and durability throughout the system. Alright, what do you say we plug this thing in and see how it does? Alright, now before we get started, I did want to take care of one thing here. As you can see, I've got Windows 10 Debloater pulled up. If you've never seen this before, this is just a PowerShell script that you can use to remove some of the more problematic Windows 10 features. I'm mostly doing this because we only have 8 gigs of RAM in this build, and I did not want to spend the money in that category to like add more RAM at this point because it's already a pretty expensive build. So instead we're going to run this tool, and hopefully it will free up some more RAM for us for some better performance. It also knocks out like the telemetry, Edge PDF, Cortana. You can literally just open this script up and it'll run right in PowerShell, and you know, pick the things that you want to disable and it will run and disable them for you. It's really straightforward. And this is all just Windows, mostly Windows telemetry garbage, some other things, some Xbox Gaming Hub add-ons and things like that. It also fixes the ads in the start menu, amongst other things. Now, be mindful if you're going to use this type of add-on, because there may be some weird Windows feature that you like that's not going to work after this is done. You can also go through and just, you know, block list certain things so that you don't remove everything from Windows 10 that could be a problem, but just something to take note of here. I highly recommend this software. You can go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. Let's go ahead and move on to our first game today. That's going to be Counter-Strike 2. I've never actually played CS2 or CSGO for that matter. I'm not a huge FPS player. And we also happen to be using the fishing lure mouse today, which has a DPI, I feel like, of about 200. So this should be an interesting experience. Let's go ahead and hop in here. We're just going to start off with a quick death match. We're at 1080p. I've got all the settings at high, and then I've got FSR turned to balanced just to kind of keep things running smooth here. And as you can see, we're really only hanging in the 40 to 60 FPS range, which isn't great for CSGO, I'll be honest. I'm a little disappointed in our performance here. One thing I did notice, if you look up over at Riva Statistics Tuner, you'll see our GPU utilization keeps bouncing between 99 and 0, which is a little bit of a concern. We're definitely not using as much of the GPU as we could be in this particular configuration. So if you're a CSGO player, I do not recommend using this type of hardware or using a riser in the way that I'm using it. I think it's probably more than likely the issue is that we just don't have enough PCIe bandwidth for the CPU to feed what it needs to feed to the GPU, because our CPU utilization is not maxed out. It's close, but it's not quite there. And as you can tell just by watching me play here, I am definitely not much of a Counter-Strike player. You'll have to forgive my horrible, sloppy play here. But anyway, there you have it. CSGO, somewhere between 40 and 60 FPS at 1080p high with FSR on balanced. All right, and off we go to an all-time classic, Grand Theft Auto 5. Today we're playing at 1080p. Everything's set to high or very high. We have a mixture of settings, no FSR or anything like that on, but we do have 16x anisotropic filtering turned on here. And as we all know, Grand Theft Auto 5 has been around for quite some time. It is heavily optimized. So I have high hopes for our RX 580 as we go into the game today. Let's go ahead and see how we do. One item of note as we load into the game here, if you take a look at Riva Statistics Tuner, you will see it is reporting back that we're using Direct 3D 11. That's actually incorrect. I did have to turn the game down to DirectX 10.1 because we were having some stuttering issues. I'm not sure exactly what caused it. It seems to run just fine with DX 10.1, so we'll continue with that. And as we're going throughout the game here, it looks like we're averaging between 50 and 70 FPS. This is a perfectly acceptable experience. Certainly better than what you find on like an Xbox 360 or something like that. Man, it's been a long time since I played this game. I tell you what, this is really good for getting that beige rage out. You can just kind of floor it and let her rip. One small note I wanted to point out here as we have a close-up of Mike. If you take a look at the back of his head, you can see the hair is almost flickering. This is live on my screen, so it's not an artifact from the screen recording or anything like that. I'm not sure what is causing that. I've never seen it before. If you're familiar with that kind of flickering look, go ahead and leave it down in the comments. Let me know what you think about that. And as is the tradition, we can't leave GTA 5 without getting wasted, so let's see how we do here. I'm going to hop on this bike and see what kind of FPS we get in traffic. It feels pretty smooth, like moving the camera around and everything like that. Feels pretty nice. There is a little bit of stuttering as I'm looking at the recording here, but that was not on screen at the time. Yeah, this feels nice. This feels really nice. It's not a perfect experience, but it's very, very playable. Oh, shoot. Ah! Off we go. All right, on to the next one. Let's load up BeamNG Drive. First things first, as we get loaded in here, let's have a look at the settings. Looks like everything's going to be on normal. SMAA is on. This is pretty average settings. Playing at 1080p once again. For some reason, it wants to max this out. We're going to go ahead and run the refresh rate at 75 Hertz. I'm not sure what's going on with my monitor here. It keeps reverting back to 60. And we're going to start at the top of the mountain here. This is one of my favorite ways to test. We're going to go ahead and just drive off the side of the mountain and see how she goes. All right, not a bad load time there for BeamNG Drive. I'm very surprised. Usually it takes a little bit longer than that on these lower performance machines, but that was nice and quick. And you can see our RX 580 is maxed out, but we also have really good frame times, or frame time consistency anyway. Down we go. Oof. Let's see if we can make it all the way down to the beach. What do you think? Oh man, I just love the crash physics in this game. They're fantastic. Can we do it? Can we do it? Can we do it? Ooh. We might not make it, guys. We might not make it. Oh, we're getting closer. 3, 2, 1, and boom! 10 points for making it down to the beach. And not a bad performance for our RX 580 here, landing between 100 and 150 FPS. Now that being said, that was just rocks. There's a different map I like to load that's a little bit more intense than this one. Let's go ahead and hop in here to Jungle Rock Island. And we're going to load up the observatory. The reason why I like this map is because it has a lot of foliage, and some GPUs do better with it than others. I've got a feeling that our RX 580 is going to have a hard time, but let's see how it does nonetheless. Alright, so usually what I do is just head right on down the road here. Looks like everything loaded in okay for the most part, although I do see that flickering again, kind of like we saw with Michael's hair in GTA 5. I wonder what's going on with that. It's just, it looks very odd to me. It might just be the way the leaves are shaded or something like that, but I feel like the GPU, something isn't quite right there. That's just my opinion. I've mostly played BeamNG on NVIDIA cards, so maybe NVIDIA cards don't have that issue. But yeah, if you look down here at the blades of grass, it just doesn't look great. And as you can take a look at our frames per second here, we're definitely down in the 40s because of all of that shading on the foliage and the movement. That's to be expected though. Overall, not a bad performance for BeamNG Drive on this machine. Now I know this is one of the things we talked about being judged on was the price of the build, and that's going to be a little bit hard in my case because a lot of this stuff is salvage. So we're going to take into consideration two things: what I paid for it actually, and then the fair market value of the part. And I will leave it to my fellow YouTubers to decide which one we're going to take, or both, or however we want to take that into consideration. Now, as far as supplies are concerned, I thought it would be fun to build a machine using only parts that I had laying around the house. That's why a lot of the stuff is salvage. And the same goes for supplies and tools. I used only supplies and tools that I could find in the kitchen. That's why you'll notice this duct tape. There's basically no screws because I didn't have screws. There's no screwdriver because I didn't have a screwdriver. There's just zip ties and duct tape all the way around. And I thought that would be fun. And I did have a ball actually doing that. And I think it really says a lot for the jankery of the build too. I don't know what value to put on that, but if we want to call it $5 for like general supplies or something like that, that's cool. Now, I wasn't sure if we were going to be considering peripherals into the price of these builds, but just for the record, I did decide to use this fishing lure mouse. It's absolutely the most terrible, horrific mouse I've ever used in my life. I never want to use it again. But I did pick it specifically because I paid $1 for it at a yard sale, and there really is no fair market value for it. Additionally, I have this on wireless keyboard. This actually came with the monitor that I'm using, but it's worth, I'd say, probably about 15 bucks, maybe a little bit less. The monitor that I use today is a on 1080p monitor that came from Walmart. The value is about $80. So we'll go ahead and tally everything up real quick. We got a fair market value coming up to about $350 for this whole thing, which now that I'm looking at it just seems absolutely absurd. But when I add it all up, that's what it comes to. My actual cost is about $200 for everything. Once again, I'd like to say thanks to Jonathan Talks HW and Robert Fixit and everybody else who's been so patient as I recover from surgery here and deal with some personal stuff. My production schedule has slipped considerably. Rest assured, we have a huge schedule of stuff coming up over the next couple of months. We're sitting at 1,550 subscribers. I want to hit 2,000 before the end of September, and I hope you'll help me get there. Be sure to stay tuned, and in the meantime, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.